Have you ever struggled with your emotions where your anger is to a point that it's just boiling over, where the frustration just seems like you can't control it? Well, you're not alone. Hello, I'm Pastor Justin, and I make videos to help you grow in your faith and also to understand the Bible better. And I struggle with anger, and I hope that this video can be encouraging to you. The title of the video is Suffocate the Fury. We all know what happens when we suffocate something. We don't give it air, we don't give it room to breathe. And that's what we have to do with anger. The first verse I wanted to look at is from Ephesians chapter 4, and it's verse 26 through 27. In your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you are still angry, and do not give the devil a foothold. And this is Paul telling us that dealing with our anger should be a priority. It's something that we can't just let linger. We've all had cuts at some point in our life. And when you don't treat a cut, the result is always the same. It may become red and puffy. Next thing you know, it's got stuff coming out of it. You don't even know what it is. And then it becomes infected. And that's what's happening when anger goes unchecked. When we allow it to just continue without treating it. And that's exactly what the devil wants. I remember watching a show. There was a gentleman, he would climb mountains, but he wouldn't use any gear. But prior to that, he would use the protective gear. So he was safe if anything would happen. But as he was going up the mountain, he would learn a route that he would take when he didn't have that protective gear. He would reach out to see where he could put his hand. He would step to see where he could get his foot just right to keep climbing, to keep advancing on the mountain. And that's exactly what Satan tries to do. When he knows you can't control your anger, he notices those patterns. He wants to learn where he can reach, where he can step, so that he can keep advancing on that mountain. But the Bible tells us that we have to be mountain movers. And there's never any reason that we should be sinning, that we should allow our anger to turn into sin. There's never any reason to sin, period. But we have to be able to know when it is a problem, when we're allowing it to linger in our lives. There was a gentleman talking to his wife, and he said, "Honey, every time I get upset with you, you never fight back. I don't understand. How are you able to control your anger?" She replied, "It's simple. I just clean the toilet." And he's confused. He's perplexed. He don't understand. He said, "What does cleaning the toilet have to do with controlling anger?" So that's what he asked her. He said, "How does that help you with your anger?" And she let him know, "I just use your toothbrush." So we see that her anger definitely was leading her down the wrong path. It turned into something that it shouldn't have, because she wasn't able to tell him that she was upset. And we can't allow that to happen in our lives. And anger, honestly, it's a human emotion. We all deal with anger. It's going to happen. God gave us a broad range of emotions, and it's good to use them in the right way. But what you do with this emotion determines if you're sinning or if you're using it for the right reason, if you're experiencing righteous anger. So, do you allow anger in a situation or from a person to linger in your life? We have to be able to give it over to God. And the second verse that I wanted to look at is from James chapter 1, verse 19 through 20. My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry, because human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires. James is telling us that controlling our anger is an act of faith. And part of our life should be reflecting God. We should be contributing to his righteousness when other people see us, when we show his characteristics, because God, he is faithful, he's just, and he's fair also. And that's our characteristics too. And sometimes when we get into that emotional state of anger, we're not very fair when we deal with other people. But we have to know that someone, they might not go to church, they might not read the Bible, they might be struggling with their faith. We have to be the ones that reflect God. We might be the only Bible that that person is ever going to read. So we have to control our emotions. We have to reflect God properly. And learning to control my anger, I realized that a lot of the time, anger, it just doesn't work. It might work for a moment. You might gain control for a few minutes, but in reality, you broken trust. You have pushed somebody away because of the anger. We can't take that little bit of time, that little bit of satisfaction, that little bit of control that we get when we are angry. We can't take that. We have to be able to do better. And I think about just when I'm around people in general, their actions might not be reflecting God. They might be angry to the point they might try to hurt somebody. They might not be able to control their anger. But I still have to hold myself to a higher standard. I have to do better. And that's something that we can do when we lean into God, into his presence, into his word. Another thing is that you have to be able to trust that God is in control. He'll provide what is needed, and he's going to bring justice in his own time. Sometimes we can get angry because we feel like somebody is getting away with something, but in reality, God is just, and he will handle things in due time. The third verse that I wanted to look at is from Ecclesiastes, and it's chapter 7, verse 9. Do not be quickly provoked in your spirit, for anger resides in the lap of fools. And we have to value practical wisdom. I know I've felt foolish in life. I can't count how many times I've looked foolish, acted foolish, and I'm pretty sure you know that feeling. You know that feeling of foolishness, especially when it comes from anger. A lot of the time, it's when the dust settles, when you have time to think. That's when we start to realize, wow, I really did look foolish. But you have to be able to control your temper because you run the risk of looking foolish. And when you're foolish, it just screams, I don't have common sense. And a foolish person always allows their emotions to take control. And we can't lead off of our emotions. I had someone tell me that Emotions can lie, and that's very true. They can lead us down the wrong path. But Benjamin Franklin once said, anger is never without reason, but seldom with a good one. And that's telling us, like, you may have a reason to be angry. It might be justifiable in our heart, in our mind, but ultimately it's not worth it. It's not worth going outside of your character. It's not worth being upset to the point that it hurts you more than the other person you're upset with. I remember my brother and my friend, they were fighting over a video game. A video game that it doesn't matter. It has no relevance in the real world. And here they are arguing over it to the point where I had to intervene because one of them said, "Oh, let's go outside and fight." That's that foolishness. It's dumb. They're willing to go cause physical harm over a virtual game that just doesn't matter. But in that moment, that anger takes over and it seems like the right thing to do. That's why we have to be in God's word and understand these things. But before you allow your anger to take over, try to recognize what triggers your emotions. You have to know what your triggers are. If I'm getting frustrated, I know that I usually clench my fist. That is a sign that, like, I'm getting frustrated. And you have to know what your trigger is. What happens when you start to get angry, when you get frustrated? You have to have a plan to work around that. Maybe it's going for a walk, and that helps you get out of the situation. And then you can take time to calm down and to think clearly. Because when we're caught in that emotion, that's usually when we say and do things that we are going to regret. So make sure you have that plan. Another good thing is just going to the fridge, get something to drink, something cool. You might literally need to cool down, but that's something that you can do. You can go to the fridge, get something to drink, and again, think. We have to be able to think things through and not lead off emotions. Because Satan will take your emotions and he will gladly do whatever he feels that is good for him, not yourself, not for God. And last, I wanted to look at Colossians, and it's chapter 3, verse 13. Bear with each other and forgive one another. If any of you have a grievance against someone, forgive as the Lord forgave you. And this is Paul telling us that we have to keep our emotions balanced. We can't get too high and we can't get too low. Because when you get too high, if it goes down, then that can lead to trouble. And if it gets too low, that's when the real trouble starts. That's when the enemy can work in that situation. So we never want to get too high or too low. We have to stay balanced. And when someone offends you, you have to be able to forgive them as quickly as God forgave us. If we think about all the times God has forgiven us for sin or all the things that we've done and we needed to repent for, I don't want to know that number, y'all, because God has been good to me and he has forgave me so many times. And that tells me that we can forgive others. And sometimes that person, they might not even be sorry. But we have to realize that it's not about them all the time when we forgive. It's so that we can have peace, so that we can move on. It's kind of like drinking poison and hoping the other person gets sick. It doesn't work that way. But I have an unknown quote. I've seen it online, but I'm not sure who wrote it. But they said, I never knew how strong I was until I had to forgive someone who wasn't sorry and accept an apology I never received. And sometimes it's going to happen in life, but we can't allow that to bring anger into our life. So don't allow that anger to lead you away from God. The enemy wants to have you trapped in offense. He wants that offense in your heart. But it's like a ball and chain. When you don't have forgiveness in your heart, when you have anger in your heart, you can only go so far. And we don't want that because the enemy can use that trap repeatedly. And you don't want to block your blessings because of hurt and anger. But I hope that this time has been fruitful. And I just pray that you're able to recognize that anger, it leads us farther away from God, but it also hurts us. It hurts the people around us. And we have to go to the Word. We have to be in our Bible and know what God is trying to teach us and show us when it comes to our emotions, especially anger. I hope this has been a blessing to you. Again, I'm going to be praying for everyone that watches this, and have a blessed day.
Don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe.